Hey bosses, this week's sponsor is Fundrise, bringing you the future of real estate investing. Get started for as little as $1,000 at investlikeaboss.com/fundrise. Find out more during the break. Welcome to the Invest Like a Boss podcast.
I'm Sam Marks.
And I'm Johnny FD. We're self-made entrepreneurs who invest our own money and use modern technology to invest like a boss.
Join us each week for exclusive interviews with our network of modern investors, business owners, and multimillionaires to discover new ways to invest our hard-earned cash.
Hey guys, this is Johnny and welcome to episode 55 of the Invest Like a Boss podcast. I'm here, Sam Marks.
Hey Johnny. Hey everybody. Greetings from Spain.
Yeah, this is really cool that we are all the way out here in Spain. I just got done hiking this weekend in rural backcountry, and this episode that we're going to have with Mark Podolsky with the Land Geek is going to be perfect because when I was out there, I was thinking, I can own some of this.
This episode is exciting. This is my style episode. It's a little bit of mix of business. It's a mix of investing. It's entertaining. And Mark is a very smart and inspirational guy. But just to get everyone excited, Mark has flipped successfully over 5,000 pieces of raw land, which is just insane.
Yeah, so if you guys don't understand what raw land is, you've never really heard about it. Basically, imagine a plot of land. It could be 20, 30, 40 acres of land that is miles and miles and miles away from the smallest towns. So not somewhere that you would buy a land to build your house in California or something, but something kind of just out in the backcountry. And it's crazy how much land there is in the U.S. And to be honest, at first, when I first heard about the Land Geek and what he does, and I thought he was just flipping property. I was like, you know what? I'm sure you can make some money from it, but that's not really for me. That's not really passive income. That's not really something that I want to do. I don't want to just, work and trade time for money, even if that money is a big multiple. But when I found out that not only is he flipping it for a big, big return, sometimes 300x, sometimes even higher, he is creating his own passive income by owner financing these properties. And I hope you guys get into this because that to me is the most exciting part of this.
I agree. The automation, the systems that he's built around this, and the ability to cash flow raw land, which I had never even heard of, is pretty incredible. So there's going to be a lot of takeaways after this. Stay tuned. Afterwards, Johnny and I will get on and have our own commentary, but get excited for this episode with the Land Geek.
Enjoy. Hey bosses, have you ever wanted to invest in real estate but didn't want the headache or risk of becoming a landlord? Well, Fundrise may be the answer. They allow you to earn passive income while they do the work. Get started today and skip the waitlist by using our special partner link at investlikeaboss.com/fundrise.
Sam Marks.
Mark, how are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm good. I love you're on the treadmill.
Hey man, sitting's the new smoking.
Oh my gosh. I heard you say that on one of your podcasts. Were you doing are you always doing the treadmill?
I'm always doing it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is amazing. I got to get myself one of these.
This is how I podcast. Because I feel like I think better when I'm walking and talking.
It's so smart. Yeah. I never try to have phone calls when I'm just sitting around. I always go walk outside and get some fresh air. It's really cool.
Yeah. You know what's so funny about that is I actually got yesterday at the Apple store a Shure mic that connects to my iPhone. So I can walk and do that in podcast. But like I was talking to my buddies like, wow, I kind of hear you walking.
Dude, this is just too good. I wasn't going to start the episode yet, but I think we're going to have to include this. This is awesome.
Sure.
And where are you right now?
I'm in Phoenix.
Okay. I actually just passed through there. I took the Amtrak from LA to Austin, Texas. And I've done it before and it was a great experience, but this one was particularly terrible. It was just a really bad group of people on it. And there's two domestic fights. They had to stop the train somewhere around Phoenix and kick people off. It was pretty rough.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It was indeed. So so you're enjoying the warm weather all year round.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Cool. And is this like a little studio you got set up in your place or?
Yeah. This is the garage. So this is my garage that I converted to my office. So I've got AC in here. It's like a 500 square feet office. It's
That's
awesome.
perfect. It's a little man cave for podcasting and treadmilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, man. Well, why don't we just jump straight into it? I think this has been a great intro already. But dude, there's so much I want to talk about with land, and I think it's a particularly interesting
subject matter because we've never touched it before. And we know nothing about acquiring land. And I think there's probably nobody better to talk to about yourself and, importantly, how to cash flow from it. So we're pumped up to have you on the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where to begin, man? How did you eventually get into real estate and specifically land?
So I was a very unhappy investment banker. And I was doing, mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups, and nothing too crazy, mid-market stuff, 5 to 500 million in enterprise value. Mm-hmm. And I'm miserable, right? I got a 45-minute commute to work and back. I'm in a cubicle. It's high pressure. I'm micromanaged. And, it's like eating away at my soul, right? Mm-hmm. So we hire this guy who is telling me that on the side, he's going to tax deed auctions, and he's buying up raw land, and he's flipping it online. Now, remember, this is 2000. Mm-hmm. And he's flipping it online, and he's making 300% returns on his investment. So, Sam, I look at companies all day long, right? Mm-hmm. And a great company has over 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Your average company is at 10%. I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm from the show me state. I don't believe it. So I got like $3,000 saved up for car repairs. We go to like the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, and we go to a tax deed auction. There's no one in the room. And I buy up 10 half-acre parcels for $300 each, right? I do exactly what he tells me to do. I put them up online. They sell for cash for over $1,200 each, right? Mm-hmm. So now I take all that money. I go to another tax deed auction in Arizona. Again, no one in the room. I buy up all I can. And on that auction, in the next 6 months, I made $90,000, right? Wow. So I go to my wife. I'm like, honey, I'm ready to quit my job. I'm going to invest in land full time. She says, absolutely not. So I said, fine. So I worked part-time in land investing and, nights and weekends and mornings. And then it took me 18 months for the land investing income to exceed my investment banking income. And I've been doing it full-time ever since. I've done over 5,000 land flips.
Wow.
And I love it. So I've been free since 2001.
Congratulations.
I'm unemployable, Sam.
Well, you got quite an office there, an enviable one. We're going to have to share a photo of you on the treadmill in your man cave in Phoenix. But that's awesome, man. I was actually really hoping that we would be able to talk about, you call them tax deeds, correct?
Right. So there's a tax deed auction, which is when you actually own the property. And tax lien auctions is when an investor actually will bid down or bid up the interest rate. Right. Mm-hmm. Which is a really kind of a cool way to make, let's say 16 to 24% on your money is with tax lien investing. The problem with it today is that it's super competitive, right? Gotcha. Hedge funds do it. Private equity groups do it. And they can make, 2% on their money. And because of arbitrage, they get a big returns. So it's very, very competitive. I actually like to own the asset, so I don't even go to auctions anymore. What I'll do is I'll get a list of people that owe back taxes and live out of state, right? Because if they owe back taxes, they're kind of already advertising they don't value that property anymore, right? Yeah. And if they live out of state, there's no emotional attachment to it, right? So what we'll do then is we'll send them a quote-unquote top dollar offer, 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. So what we do is the Warren Buffett method, right? For our pricing, we want to have this massive, just margin of safety, right? Of 300%. So I'll look at the comps and I'll divide by 4. And then I'll put that into my spreadsheet and I'll actually send out a real offer because I don't want to be in the appraisal business, Sam. I don't want to spend all day on the phone saying I'm interested in your land. They're like, well, I'm interested in selling. What are you going to offer me? Right. So it's an actual offer. Now, 3 to 5% of the people will accept our offer. We go through due diligence and then we close on that property. And then within 30 days, we sell that property. And my favorite way to sell it is on owner financing. So this is how we get a piece of raw land to actually cash flow. Because what we'll do is we'll usually get our money out on the down payment or within 6 months of that down. Right. And we just make it a car payment. Right? Maybe $1,000 down, $249 a month at, 10% interest. And essentially we've now created a note. So we have recurring income coming every every single month without any renters, without any rehabs, without any renovations, without rodents. Because we're not dealing with a tenant, we are exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act. And this is why one of my podcasts is called The Best Passive Income Model. Because, I don't think there's anything better out there except for maybe life insurance, because that's just an idea.
Yeah, really smart stuff. So I want to go back to where I had previously bought a piece of land when I was very young with my dad. And I want to say I was probably 13, and I had all the terminology mixed up until you just straightened it out with tax lien and tax deed. And we went up to South Carolina and we went to one of those auctions. We ended up buying a taxed lien property, I believe. And you're going to have to go through this and straighten out the terminology and how it all works. But I believe that we bought a piece of property that they owed interest to us on, like you said, somewhere around 12%. And then they didn't pay the interest back, and then we were able to acquire it. Again, this was so long ago, so I hope you can straighten out the terms. But then we ended up acquiring the property, but we didn't do anything with it for about 4 or 5 years. And I could always remember my dad being like, we got to pay the tax on it every year, and it's just sitting there. So I would imagine so much of this and what you do and how you make this successful is just having it into a mechanism where you acquire it at much undervalued, and then you have a channel of being able to flip that and cash flow it through financing. Correct.
Yeah. So we, with software now, we have our own proprietary software program, and we're 90% automated. So we upload a list. The offers immediately go out via lob.com via an API. Mm-hmm. And when they come back, we go through each stage of the business. What used to take 20 minutes in paperwork now takes 2 seconds.
Wow.
So between 3 of us last month, we saved 119 hours working in the software. So now I work in Frontier Equity Properties, my land investing business, 2 hours a week. And it really is amazing how you can scale up today with software.
That's amazing. And did you create your guys' own software, or have you used something else external?
No, we created our own software based on our model. So, once you start doing due diligence, we have our VA go in, they do the title reports, they get our screenshots for Google Earth maps. We want to get the GPS coordinates. Mm-hmm. We want GIS maps. So everything that a buyer would want. When we're doing our due diligence, we're also doing our marketing. So then we press a button, it automatically starts creating the ad, and it generates it to our website. Mm-hmm. And then from that, we start creating, we an automation program with Craigslist. So we do about 124 Craigslist ads a day. And it's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. I listened to a couple of your podcasts already. It's great. And that was one of the takeaways. You were talking about Craigslist automation. I was like, how, and then in the beginning of this podcast, you mentioned you've done 5,000 properties, and my brain was just like, wow, like how do you get from 1 to 5,000? I mean, there has to be certain automations in there, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is automated. Absolutely.
Incredible. So how did the name, the Land Geek, come about? Is that your personal name, or is that just for the business?
I'm geeky. And so I thought to myself, well, no one's going to remember Mark Podolsky, right? But the Land Geek they'll remember.
Yeah.
And that's how I started it.
Good branding, my man. Good branding. Yeah. So what are some of the other benefits? You mentioned a few of them previously, but it's worth kind of reviewing and just kind of underscoring some of the benefits of owning raw land.
Right. So Ted Turner, whom is the largest landowner in the United States, has a great quote. And he says, buy raw land. It's the only thing that lasts. And when you think about it, it's true. Like land will last longer than styrofoam, right? Styrofoam lasts a long time.
Yeah.
But even that will one day decompose, but land lasts forever. So it's really a great asset because it requires no maintenance. There's nothing to protect. Typically when you're a land investor, it's a hockey stick type of chart, right? Mm-hmm. So the typical land investing model, which I don't agree with, is you buy land and you hold it for 20 years, you keep paying the property taxes. And if you're in the path of growth, a developer will come in and then it hockey sticks up and you make this massive return. We've all heard the story about someone who bought land, outside of the city, growth came in, and then, old Jeb is a millionaire, right? So what we do is we shortcut that process, and we then, sell those properties to people that basically are growth investors. They're recreationalists. They're military. They're preppers. They're hoping for the best. They're preparing for the worst. Or what I call man jewelry. I've got a guy in San Diego who's a CEO. He spends $5,000 a month with me every month, because in just buying up more property, because he thinks it's cool and he just wants to keep building up his net worth in raw land. So it's a huge market, and there's a lust for land in this country, but no one's doing it. If you go to a RIA meeting, right, there'll be 100 people in that room. 99 of them will be single family home house flippers or wholesalers. You and I would be the only land guys. So 3,007 counties, billions of acres, you, me, a million people could get in this niche, right? We'll all run out of money before we run out of deal flow.
Yeah. It's
not a sexy business. You can't go on HGTV or DIY network and see flip this land. What are they going to do? Watch me in my office shuffling paper? Typing on the computer, going on Google Earth? I mean, it's not a visual medium. So, it's always going to kind of be this sort of non-competitive kind of thing.
Yeah. You mentioned Ted Turner. Have you read his book, Call Me Ted?
No, I should though.
That's a great book. I really, he's somewhat of a controversial guy. He carries a lot of slack with him, but his book is awesome, really inspiring. And I never kind of thought of Ted as like the smartest guy, but he's always just found a way to win and staying super competitive throughout his life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So how much of your strategy, Mark, is really finding good value property? So you mentioned kind of taking the Warren Buffett approach to finding property and finding value. Is that a relatively large part of the overall strategy?
Yeah. In fact, I always have a bag of M&Ms on my desk, and for my clients, we always send them a bag of M&Ms, because ultimately there's only two things in this business that make you money: mailing and marketing. And that's it, right? If you're not mailing, you're a chicken business without chicken, right? You've got to have deal flow. So that's a huge aspect of the business, is doing your county research, finding good markets where you already know definitively that deals are being done there. Don't be a trailblazer. Don't go somewhere where you think, oh, there's no competition. Well, there's probably a reason there's no competition, right? So you want to go where you know there's deals being done, and then you just take a look at the comps, you divide by 4, you send out the offers. And then once the offers come back in, you do your due diligence, you close on the deal, and then you start marketing. And the best place to market, Sam, is guess where?
The internet?
No.
Craigslist?
No.
Your website?
No.
The podcast?
No.
Through the Land Geek?
No. I love putting you on the spot. We have a built-in best buyer. It's the neighbor. The neighbor.
Oh,
right?
I probably would have gone at least 100 guesses before I got to that.
Right. So the neighbor who's got a house isn't going to buy another house, but the neighbor who has a piece of raw land might want to actually increase their land holding, or they're scared, right? Mm-hmm. They don't know who their new neighbor is going to be. Maybe that person's going to go vertical and ruin their view, right?
True. Yeah.
So we send out these neighbor letters saying, hey, before we go to the open market, we're going to give you first chance, right? Now, sometimes they pass and they say, hey, I'm interested in selling my property too. Now we've got a larger tract to sell, right? And then we'll go to our buyers list, which is the only thing we own. And then we go to Craigslist, and then we'll go to Facebook groups, buy-sell groups, landandfarm.com, landsofamerica.com, landflip.com, landhub.com. There's a whole bunch of land sites. So, we don't ever want to have to generate our own traffic. Yeah. We don't pay for traffic.
So when you said mailing, so you said two things, mailing and marketing. So the mailing is just
sending out the offers.
It's just offers, right? So you've already done the majority of your DD at that point, at least pre-offer DD, and then you have properties that you're interested in, and then you're just mailing them out at kind of valuations that you feel would be, would work for you guys.
Exactly. Nice. So if we have a less than 3% response rate, our offers came in too low. If we have over 5% response rate, we probably came in too high.
Wow, that's down to a science, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. And what are some of the high level qualities that you would look for, qualities and characteristics that you would look for in land?
Well, it's funny because when I first started, I was kind of a land snob, right? I went out and I went out with my buddy and I looked at this. We were like in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. I mean, Sam, this looked like Chernobyl. It was just ugly in the middle of nowhere. And we could buy up these properties over the counter for like nothing, And And so my buddy's like, I'm going to buy them. You want to split it with me? And I'm like, you're going to buy this? I'm like, you know what's going to happen? Refunds, right? People are going to go out there. They're just going to ask for refunds. I'm like, I'm not buying any of it. So he starts selling it online. He starts emailing me the sales, and he's making like 1,000%, right? And so he keeps emailing me. He's like, sale. And I'm like, and I email him back, refund, right? Mm-hmm. So he emails me back another sale. So this time I email him back, refund/lawsuit. Well, he sold out all that property. Sam, guess how many refunds he had?
Ooh, one side of the fence or the other, right? 0 or a lot?
He had 0.
Okay.
0. So there's a pig for every barn. So I learned the hard way watching my buddy make $100,000 right in front of me. You know, don't be a land snob. Just because I'm not the market for that land doesn't mean there's not a market for it. So, you know, Scott Todd, one of my clients, mm-hmm. He bought in a mud pit in Florida. He screwed up his due diligence. He bought in a mud pit, and he made $30,000 on that deal because somebody went out there and it was perfect for them. And they sent him a video, you know, driving around in their quad in the mud.
Oh my gosh. They literally just wanted a playground.
They just wanted a playground. I sold a piece of property on eBay that was on the side of a mountain. Another due diligence mistake, right? It was 40 acres. I paid $2,500 for it. It went up to $37,000. And I'm freaking out. I call the buyer. The buyer wires the funds. I'm like, why'd you buy this? I'm like, you know, it's on the side of a mountain, right? He's like, it's perfect. He's like, I'm a director in LA and I'm filming out there and I don't want to have to deal with having to get permits.
Yeah.
So I bought the land.
Wow.
So, as far as the criteria, I've got to really, as long as there's something compelling about the property, you can find it. Do you have good access to it? I got a low threshold now as far as what I would buy. And of course, I've got to have my margin of safety. If I'm not buying it 23 cents the dollar, I won't buy it.
It's like you have your beer goggles on, but for land.
I have beer goggles. You know what? I'm going to steal that. I have beer goggles on for land.
So I was actually looking, before we got scheduled to do this episode, I was looking for land, ironic or coincidentally, in Arizona, because I was thinking of building just kind of this rural cabin. I just had this dream of kind of, mountainside or in this nice kind of nature area, just building a cabin and having it as like a little retreat. So I was looking up I don't even know what source I was using, like realtor.com, just whatever was available on the web. And I was looking up around Sonoma in Arizona, and maybe it was just across the border in Utah. But I couldn't believe how expensive the land was for like 0.3 acres. It was, a lot of the land was going for 150,000 plus, and not that scenic. I wonder how much of a difference or a margin there is depending on which channel you use to find land prices. Like if you just go to realtor.com and find it, or if there's ways to really find much better value property. Yeah.
I mean, I don't go to realtors because, those properties that you were looking at, that's outside of my niche, mm-hmm. right? I'm looking at properties that are, maybe 2 to 3 hours from the nearest town and are, very inexpensive, mm-hmm. very inexpensive.
And when you go find properties, before you actually make an offer on a property, are you having to go see that with your own eyes, or do you just use some type of web portal to find photos and scale out the land?
We outsource it. We use either a local Craigslist gig for $50.
Uh-huh.
So the process is they get our property report, they get our instructions, how to get to the property, and they have to download an app called What 3 Words.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to email us the 3 words that they're at, which convert to GPS coordinates. So we know they actually went there. So they shoot video, they take pictures, and they fill out our report. I want to make sure, what are the neighbors like? Are they dumping? What's the road like? Is it gravel? Is it paved? Is it dirt? Right? How far to the nearest Walmart? How long did it take for you to get there? What was, the general soil look like? Right? What's growing out there?
Mm-hmm.
And get a full property report. We do our title search, and then if everything works out, we close.
Dude, I love hearing about the systems and processes that are in place and how you've kind of built all sides of this business and enterprise. It's super cool to see all levels of it. And I wonder is there any type of size of land that is, most suitable for what you typically go for? Or is there a massive range?
It's so funny. I bought everything from a postage stamp to 640 acres. But if I could pick one size, right? I joke to my wife, I'm like, if we have another child, I have 3 kids, my 4th child would be named 40. I love 40 acre parcels. My favorite deal ever was buying 640 acres in Nevada, subdividing them into 40s and selling them off. I mean, we made $5 million on just one deal doing that.
Wow.
So 40s are absolutely my favorite. It's like the perfect size. 5 sell, 10 sell, 20 sell, 1 sell, half acre sell, but nothing is better than a 40 acre parcel.
And when it comes to subdividing land into different plots, like you just said in that example, does that take a lot of permitting, or is that also kind of processes that you have down to a system?
It's a system, it's essentially you go to the right county that allows you to do it, and then you hire the local surveyor, and they charge about $7 an acre to do it. So, on that deal, I was paying about $50 an acre for the property, plus $7 for the surveyor, and then I was selling it between $500 and $750 an acre.
Dang, that's insane. $50 an acre just sounds insane.
It's insane.
Yeah. Wow.
It's insane.
And you're living in Arizona. You just mentioned Nevada. Are you typically looking in kind of these 3 or 4 different states around you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nobody wakes up, Sam, and says, hey, you know what? I'd really love to buy some property today in Wisconsin, right? Unless you live in Wisconsin. But California, Nevada, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Florida, right? These are all growing areas. They've got the sunshine. They've got nice weather for the most part. Maybe not Oregon and Washington as much, but they've got something else going on over there as far as, the legalization of marijuana. And so it's just, a massive, massive market. There's one county in Texas that has 28,000 delinquent properties. Like, how many of those can you and I buy?
Jeez. Gets a brain spinning for sure. And when you're owning land, going into liability side of things, how do you protect yourself on each and every go to make sure that, some kid riding his bike across your land doesn't fall into a cactus? Yeah.
So essentially what we do is we have a umbrella policy that's attached to our homeowner's policy. So if somebody sues us personally, we have that protection. Otherwise, the LLC will protect us.
Okay, good. So that stuff's pretty easy for even a layman to figure out when they go in and buy their first property. They're not going to have to worry about it.
I mean, if you're an insurance agent, the insurance agent will be like, oh, you've got to buy insurance on every single piece of property. That's not true.
Cool.
They want to get business insurance to get, it's expensive. Just get an umbrella policy attached to the homeowners.
Good to know. So you mentioned that you had that massive deal in Nevada that you made $5 million off of. Was that your biggest success in land so far?
That was my biggest success so far in land. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So are you always going for, large home runs in this style, or is it in this game, is it much more about hitting singles?
I think it's the full spectrum, right? There's singles, there's doubles. The longer you do it, the more you'll round the bases, right? Jeff Axton, one of my clients, he bought a 640 for $15,000. He flipped it for $150. So I'd call that a home run. Yeah. That's not typical. Another one of my clients this week made $32,000 on a deal. That's amazing. I'd call that maybe a triple. But for the most part, one of my clients, this is a single. He bought a piece of property for $1,500 and he sold it for $9,000. That's a nice single. It's solid,
very
right?
Good.
So in our world of 300% to 1,000% margins, things get really weird. Right? Because people are like, oh, I only made 500% on that deal. I'm like, you only made 500% on that deal. Like the real world, like no one does that. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. We on every one of our episodes, we're talking about investing. And I would say the majority of people that we talk to, the game is to kind of try to optimize around 8%, of course, with stocks and bonds and everything and portfolios of that such. And but 8% is really never going to make you wealthy. And we don't really buy into this philosophy of, get a job, work for 40 years, put away some money, save it at 8. And by the time you're 60 and no longer care about having much money, you might have a nice nest egg built up. So we're always looking for, kind of rule number one, we always say invest in yourself, learn new skills, try new things. build new businesses, and then always looking for, these one-off opportunities to make a 10 times, 100 times, 300 times return.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that with land investing, the whole goal is for your passive income to exceed your fixed expenses. Mm-hmm. And then you're working because you want to, not because you have to. And that's really, the most gratifying thing for me is when I get an email from somebody or a Vox and they're like, hey, I just retired my wife today, right? Because, we're generating $4,000 a month in passive income, or, Sean Rickman and Rachel Mueller quit their jobs last month. They're going to go to Europe, right? Because their passive income exceeds their fixed expenses. They don't need to work. Mm-hmm. They're just going to go and enjoy life. So it's really crazy, some of the stories, and nobody ever thanked me for changing their life when I buy, when I sell them a piece of raw land. But Land Geek, it's really been a very humbling and gratifying experience to see how this model has changed people's lives. It's pretty incredible.
That's awesome. Now, what could possibly go wrong, or what mistakes do you see people make when they become a client of yours, or they go off and try to do it on their own? What mistakes have you seen happen where people get themselves in bad situations, maybe by not doing enough due diligence or acting a little too fast?
Yeah, I mean, if they're with us, it's kind of like, a Sherpa taking you up to Everest. Mm-hmm. It's really safe. If they're doing it on their own, I'd say that the biggest mistake I'd see is paralysis analysis, right? Mm-hmm. They want to do due diligence on the lists before they even send out an offer. They want to play business. They want to get an LLC first. They want to get business cards first. Mm-hmm. They want to get a logo. None of these things make you any money, right? They want to look professional before they're even professional. So I see that a lot. I would say, I mean, because of our, if you maybe mispricing, if they don't know how to price it right, just poor calculating, maybe going to the wrong county mm-hmm. because they're not doing their county research correctly. Those things can happen. But, if you're staying away from the East Coast, you don't have to really worry about like environmental issues, like a mm-hmm. Superfund site. You can go to EPA.gov and just double check to make sure you're not, buying in a Superfund site. But right. For the most part, it's really tough when you buy an asset 20 to 30 cents on the dollar to lose. Right. It's really, really tough. So it's not impossible.
Right. So as long as you're getting the undervalued property, I think where we messed up was we didn't understand how much tax we'd have to pay on it. And then we didn't have an out, or we didn't know how to sell it. And then I think we were playing more the game of what you mentioned earlier, whereas you buy a piece of property, you sit on it for 10 years and hope a developer comes in. And I mean, I was only 13, so I didn't know what taxes were at that point anyways in my life. But that never happened. And I'm not sure what actually we did with the property, but would that be any type of scenario that you've seen happen where people buy and then they have cash flow issues from it?
Yeah, I not too much, mm-hmm. Not too much actually. Yeah, we've been very lucky with that, because even if somebody doesn't have a lot of money, they can wholesale to me mm-hmm. and I'll buy it. They'll make 100% and I'll make 200%.
Sounds like a good model. I like it.
Yeah.
And man, you've bought so many properties, 5,000 pieces of property. I have no idea how many acres that is, but you must have some really interesting stories. Is there anything that's particularly wild that's happening, an interesting story, or something funny or that's happened on one of the pieces of property, something unexpected of any sort?
I've got a crazy story. I get a call from the FBI like 4 years ago.
Everybody's favorite phone call.
My favorite phone call. And this woman who spent like $50,000 buying up raw land from me, mm-hmm. Turns out she was embezzling from her company, and she stole like $2 million. And she was buying like land and exotic animals and sports cars. And, she was like going around the country with her boyfriend. She was married at the time. Like, she went off the rails, and she was going to jail. And they wanted to know, like, how did you meet this woman and the whole transaction? Well, it turned out like I was able to keep the money. It was fine.
Wow.
She was on the hook.
Well, she sounded like she enjoyed it while it lasted.
She had quite a ride. But yeah.
She buys some tigers and put it on the raw land.
Yeah, I have no idea, but like, yeah, rare, like, birds. And it's just a crazy story that I was looking at it. I was showing my wife, like, look at this. It's like, it made like national news.
Yeah. I would think there'd be some type of, I watched like National Geographic a lot and stuff. There's always these kind of treasure hunts that always happen out west for some of the old cowboys' gold and stuff that's supposed to be buried in, Arizona, New Mexico areas and stuff. I would just think that something over time would pop up like that, where you get some like treasure hunters or strike oil on the property or something cool like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, nothing like that.
Keep us posted when those treasure hunters come through.
I will.
So Mark, I just want to kind of have you take us through, what it's like to be a client of yours. And if someone like myself came to you and was like, hey, I definitely want to do this, where's the best place to get started? How would you kind of get us up to speed and into the system?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the best place to go is thelandgeek.com. Mm-hmm. And then just download for free, the ebook, How to Avoid the 3 Fatal Land Buying Mistakes, get our passive income blueprint, and start listening to our Land Geek podcast. So we have like a free membership site with over 100 podcasts, mm-hmm. all devoted to land investing. And then when you feel like, hey, this really appeals to me, then you can take it to the next level. And, we have different products and services for every budget that can kind of help get you there. But, it's one of those things we have so much information out there. I would say, get educated to even make sure that this is right for you mm-hmm. before you even start. And
what are your client range from? Do you have everything from kind of university students on up to, moguls of some sort?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly do. It's crazy. I've got guys who've been in this business for, 20 years mm-hmm. and top of their game, and they want to get better. And I've got university students. I have doctors. I have lawyers. I have a lot of software engineers because I'm the Land Geek and they like systems.
Yeah.
I have a lot of engineers, a lot of pilots. If you go to one of our boot camps and you've ever been to another real estate seminar, you're like, oh my gosh, it's really different.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
It's a lot of fun, but like it's a very geeky group.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
We like geeks. Tell us about the boot camp real quick.
Yeah, so the boot camp is a 2.5-day just land investing immersion mm-hmm. Program, and it's just networking and just learning, and it's great. It's great. If you go to the landgeek.com/bootcamp, you can learn all about it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely leave a link to that in the show notes. And Mark, just on your personal investing, are you 100% invested in this business and in land, or do you have investments outside of that? We're always curious to hear what people are personally investing in.
Yeah, so I have an EQRP. I have a qualified retirement plan mm-hmm. that gives me check writing privileges. So in my retirement vehicle, I buy up other people's land notes. So, for me, that's the most passive of passive pieces because, I'm teaching people how to do this. So I know they know how to do it right. I know they bought it right. And then if they need cash, I can buy 12 to 18 months of their cash flow. Mm-hmm. And then they can pay me a return on that into my retirement plan. And the best case for me is if they default, because then I get an asset that I can sell 300% to 1,000%. Right. So that's kind of how I diversify is I buy up notes essentially in my retirement. And then otherwise, I just keep buying and selling raw land.
Very cool. I love the focus and the niche. Really appreciate you sharing all that stuff with us. A lot to digest and such an interesting topic that we haven't touched yet. So having your expertise on has been a lot of fun, and we really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate it.
Okay, all the listeners, will leave links in the show notes. And if you want to reach out to Mark, we'll leave some contact information for him. Be sure to check out his podcast and all of his other material available on thelandgeek.com. Mark, catch you later, buddy.
Thanks, Sam.
Sam, I know I get excited with a lot of our guests, but with the Land Geek in this episode, I swear to God, the first thing I did was I started researching how I can do this myself.
Well, you got to reach out to Land Geek. And in fact, I know a bunch of our listeners are going to contact the Land Geek after this. Anyone who does and starts working with them, let us know. I'm super interested to find out more about the process and from your personal experience so that we can share with with everybody, because this is really cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And at first I was thinking, I was like, okay, if I was in the US, I would absolutely do this, because I think it'd be kind of fun just to even drive out to some of those properties, even if you don't have to. How cool would it be to be able to go out to one of your properties that you actually own and be like, yep, this is mine.
Yeah. What's a great quote from this episode was Ted Turner. And he said, buy raw land. It's the only thing that lasts. And this is kind of counter to anything I've ever thought about with raw land, which is why I like these type of episodes, almost like the Phil Town episode, where it kind of flips everything on its head. Everything that we're kind of thinking about, it just flips it over and makes you kind of think maybe there's definitely a better way. And this episode, I think there's a lot of good takeaways from this. So Johnny, let's talk about some of those. Yeah,
definitely. So it took me a minute to even figure out what Ted Turner meant by "it's the only thing that lasts." but he's right, because there's no building on there. There's nothing to decay or maintain. It's just a piece of parcel land. And maybe nature will take it over. There's a bunch of trees people have to clear out, but that might be the reason why someone's going to buy it anyways. But I think it's really cool that his model is not buy and hold in hopes that some developer is going to come in, build a casino, and offer you $1 million for a piece of land. Because that could happen. But to be honest, unless you have some inside information, like on the TV show Billions, most likely that's not actually going to happen. And that's just like buying a lottery ticket and holding on to it and not cashing it out.
And I think that's why so many people get raw land wrong, including myself before, because we bought a piece of raw land. We sat on it for 5 years, hope the development would grow and someone would want to buy it. And all along the way, we're just paying taxes with no plan. And in time, you either have to sell it or you have to just continue to hope longer and hope for the best. We ended up selling it, sold it at a loss. And now this episode, it says, make it make sense, because you're not going for that necessarily hockey stick return of waiting and holding out for developer. You have a plan and a distribution channel in place to sell this, and it all just comes down to a system.
So that saying, I think it was a quote in a movie that says, there's always a sucker in the room. And if you don't know who it is, it's you.
Okay, yeah. So are you calling me a sucker, Johnny?
Maybe, but you were 13 at the time, so I'll give you some credit for this. But every time I think a deal might sound too good to be true, I ask myself, who's a sucker in this situation? Who's losing the money? And you kind of just explained it well, where the people who are buying plots of land and holding it, and they're paying these these ridiculous property taxes for years and years, eventually they're going to be tired of it. They're just going to be like, okay, I waste my money. I'll sell it at a loss. Yep. And sucker is a bad word. I feel bad for these people, but that's who is, giving up the property at a lower than optimal value. Sometimes at what he said, like 28 cents on the dollar. And then the people you're selling it to are the people that have kind of the hopes and dreams of saying, all right, I'm going to buy this piece of land and it might be worth, $1 million someday. So then you have a buyer on both ends, and us in the middle, are really the only logical or rational people.
Mm-hmm. I was getting interviewed the other day, and we we're talking about just business as a general concept nowadays. And today, business is extremely, extremely fast paced and super ultra competitive. And 90% of startups fail, maybe even more now. But also, there's never been a better opportunity to start a business, to become an investor, to get ultra rich. This is it. This is the greatest period in history. But if you really want to scale, you need speed, you need confidence, and you need automation. And one of the things that he has done is create an automated system. And without that, he would never have gotten to 5,000 properties, right? You have to have automation to get to that. That would take a lifetime. He may not have even ever been able to quit his other job, but he's been able to create systems to automate this massive, massive mailing and marketing process. And that's why he and his system are able to win and to find these ideal opportunities at, like you said, 28 cents on the dollar, and flip them.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point that you brought up. And one of my kind of concerns after listening to this episode was, how am I going to do this while abroad? And I thought, okay, it's really cool that he can find surveyors to go out and actually look at the land. He can find the deals without ever actually going there. And I started, having, thoughts like, what about sending out the mail. Like, don't I need to be the one to actually send out the mail? And then I realized that there's all these websites where you can have them send out bulk mail for you. And they can even do it in like hand lettering fonts to make it look like
it's real. Yeah.
It's a real letter that was written by hand. And if anything, it's kind of almost a blessing in disguise being out overseas. Right now we're in Spain and not being able, not even having the option to handwrite 500 offers and send them out in the mail.
Yeah. And not really having the option to go visit the property. And I think that was one of the big takeaways in this episode was that he sees a lot of people make mistakes in, and that he admitted to making early mistakes in is being a land snob or getting too emotionally attached to property. And you can, if we were in whatever state we were and we were doing these things and there was property around, I would be very, very tempted to go spend 4 hours driving to see this property, but it's not necessary. So kind of removing that option and sticking with the system makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I think the only reason why I'm not going to sign up right away and just jump on this is because I think a big part of their kind of the value in the kind of the Land Geek course is that they have an in-person training. I think he calls it a boot camp. Mm-hmm. And I'm also sure that there's going to be some small things that would be just easier if I was in the US. Like, for example, when people call in, having it forward to a cell phone and be able to actually pick up and close the deal with the phone and things like that.
Well, I think this is another good one for you and I to put on the radar for the next time we're back in the U.S. Maybe stop by Georgia, visit Philtown, do their course, and then go on and visit the Land Geek. This would be a perfect thing for you based on what you're working on right now, your lifestyle, having some time to invest in a new revenue source and having capital to also, put behind that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like it sounds fun, to be honest. Like when he was talking about, how it's more of a hobby, and I actually took a listen to a couple of his podcast episodes where he interviewed some of his students, and they all talk about how much fun it is to just find good deals. And I am a deal nerd where I just enjoy finding deals. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, so his course, I think it's called the Investor's Toolkit. I looked it up and it was $1,750, but it looks like one of those things where it's all packaged up together, where if you're serious about this, I'm pretty sure you can learn most of it, doing your own, Googling around and reading books and listening to podcasts and things like that. But I think what he had said on another podcast is after you buy your first property, if you don't cash flow that, then he'll refund you the course. And I think that's really smart on his end, because that means that, you actually have to go through the actual course. You have to actually watch the videos and then take action if you want to get a refund. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also really smart, for the student's point of view, because, it kind of filters out the people who aren't serious about it, who has hesitations, and they're like, all right, well, let me just give it a shot. And if they give it a shot and it works out, then there's no reason for them to refund the course.
Yeah, I like that. One other point that I thought was really cool on this, if you just think about it from a pure numbers standpoint, so much of investing and so much of business and so much of everything in life, it just comes down to numbers. It's a numbers game, right? You've heard that tons and tons of times in different contexts throughout life. And he said the two really important points to this stuff: mailing and marketing. Mailing is deal flow. Marketing is flipping the properties. And if they're getting 3% response on their offers, they know that they priced it too low. And if they're getting 5% response, they know they priced it too high. I love the science behind it. I love the precision, but also it's a numbers game, right? You can apply that to so many different things in life. And a lot of people love the landlord episode. He did it numbers game strictly through pure hustle and just cold calling and making it happen. And the Land Geek has done it in a similar way, but using a lot more automation, a lot more tech savviness.
Yeah, I definitely think so. It's really cool that the things that you took away out of this episode are probably completely different than what a lot of people listen to. A lot of people listen to just, the real estate side of it. But I think you kind of hear the business automation and startup mentality side of it. Yeah,
it was a really cool episode. Mark, if you're listening, thanks for coming on and sharing that stuff. we'd love to have you back on in the future and talk about the progress of this and more systems and more analysis, because this is great stuff. So guys, if you like this, check out Mark's website, thelandgeek.com. He's also got a great podcast. Johnny and I have listened to a few episodes under the same name, The Land Geek. And again, let us know if you work with Mark and you follow the process, join the program. Let us know. We'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, actually, I think he's now renamed the podcast to the Best Passive Income Model Podcast.
Okay, great.
Where I think he's pretty excited about the part about the dealer financing. And if you guys didn't get that part of it, that's by far my favorite part. I really want to wrap everyone's head around that. Is not only are you making, a 300x return on your investment for flipping the land, but now that person who's buying it from you is paying you 10% interest on it until they can pay it off. So to me, that's like a double whammy. And what are your thoughts, Sam? Are you going to take any action on this, or are you going to kind of hold off till we're back in the US?
I'm holding off on everything. I'm permanently on hold just to put my head down and focus on the startups. But I mean, there's just so many good things out there. That's what the great thing about this podcast is. We're just unearthing lots of opportunities, and it's, everyone's got their own strategy. I'm happy with where we got in the last 12 months of running this podcast and reshaping our portfolios. So I don't want to continue to tweak. But like I said, this is of super interest, and I think it all makes sense. And I love systems and I love automation. And if you can use that to have an information and a deal flow advantage and some type of distribution channel for marketing those goods, I think it's all wins. If
somebody can come out with some kind of automated platform like Pure Street or Wealthfront for raw land, let me know, because that is something I'd be super interested in. Right? I'd be happy to give up a percentage of the deal for other people to kind of go through the whole process.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking with crowdfunding real estate. There's 150 platforms out there. We use a couple of them. There's a lot of other good ones out there, but more than anything, there's tons of good deals on all these platforms, but you really have to know how to analyze these deals to get into them, right? So I think there's all types of new opportunities for people to create systems like Mark has created for raw land in other categories and take a percentage for managing it and creating confidence around that.
Yeah, definitely. So let us know in the Boss Lounge if you hear of any platforms like that, and if you guys end up flipping any raw land, or you guys end up joining his course, let us know, because I'm really excited about pretty much everything that he taught. So I want to give a big shout out for this week to everyone who's left these amazing 5-star reviews of the podcast. Without you guys, we would not be able to continue bring out these amazing episodes every single week. So this week I would like to say thank you to K Mall 360. Love the different ideas and perspectives, putting their money where their mouths are. 5 stars. Been listening since day 2 and discovered them by accident. Very happy with hearing their potential personal travels and ideas, and the fact that they have skin in the game they discuss. Honest and open discussions keep it and me interested in listening to more episodes. So thank you so much, K-Mall.
Thank you, K-Mall, and everybody out there. Hasta luego. See you all next week.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Invest Like a Boss podcast. Join our mailing list at investlikeaboss.com to get exclusive access to our insider investment portfolios and our private members forum.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends and leave us a review in the iTunes store. It helps more than you know. See you guys next week.